And that was why when Sulai asked me and the relevance of the unions, I tried to break it down. But you remember we talked about policy pronouncement. And we said again, what are policies? Policies are supposed to be statements that will convey the national philosophy, in this case of a corporation, or at a national level of a government, but must be seen to be reflected in what? Political thinking of leaders. It's a pregnant statement. So when you make a policy pronouncement, so many things go with it. When the Honorable former minister and professor was talking, what did he say? He said he was talking also about internal refining and domestication. And that was why also I said recently, our president paid a visit to a member of oil cartel and a member of what? A gas cartel. Even if it were just the visit to just the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that our president made, you're supposed to just look at, apart from the governance, right? Management of Saudi Aramco. We said also they have the biggest refineries. They refine more than 50% of what they produce. They produce close to 10 million barrels. All you need is to just come back after cross-fertilizing that knowledge. Look at your own self or your country. What do we need to do? Well, like we said, those who drive this system, those who will drive your mission to help you achieve your vision, are the same people that are members of what? The unions.
Okay, now let's talk about, the strike now, because, this announcement was made 2 days ago, precisely, I think on Tuesday. Today is a Thursday. It was made on Tuesday evening, and then by the wee hours of Wednesday morning, we get to hear that the unions had a meeting through the night and have reached an agreement that they're going to go on strike action, shutting down all NNPC depots nationwide, in a situation where a fuel shortage is already, biting the country. We have to ask, do you think that was the best line of action on the part of the unions, considering that, everybody wants the sector to get better?
When you say somebody is reactionary, sometimes it's based on impulse, and sometimes depending on how you react, you're likely to be listened to. But the common denominator is that we don't want to have energy crisis at this time. We've been having energy issues already. We don't want to get to the crossroad. If we get to the crossroad, we are going to have security threats.
Because we're listening to the statement of the unions, and it would seem that they're already saying, well, there was already a few shortage before we decided to embark on this strike, so you can't exactly blame us for it. But we all know, if the queues are anything to go by on your way down to our station this morning,
I saw a lot.
It's going to
kilometers of queues.
Exactly, it's going to get worse. So we have to ask, do you think that there's been something else in the air before now? Or do you think that this action alone, this perceived or this so-called restructuring or unbundling or whatever word we want to use for it, is the only reason why the unions have decided they're going to go on strike overnight between Tuesday and Wednesday morning?
I think what you're saying is basically just calling on a neutral party, like probably the secretary to the government of the federation, right, to have what? The two parties to sit on a round table and in the interest of national unity have a congruency, because it will be difficult. If you talk to the camp of the honorable minister, by the time he is through with his explanations, you are likely to blame the other camp. But if you sit with the other camp, by the time they are through with their explanation, you're likely to blame the camp of the minister.
The question is, why should we have camps? You say that the labor unions are, also working. They're going to be an integral part of this development, this restructuring. They're going to be an integral part. If the oil sector is going to get better, they definitely are going to be a part of it. I'm sure that you're not satisfied. You say nobody's satisfied with where we are currently in terms of where the industry is. If that is a common denominator, why should we have camps?
And that was why also the minister said probably there was no effective or an integrative engagement. Then Professor Tam David West also added and spiced that further and said probably there is a need to call the unions. So whichever way you look at it, there is an issue with communication. Whichever way you look at it, camps have been created. And that was why we are saying, this time around, probably you need a neutral party.
In whose
like
interest?
The SGF.
In all of this, in whose interest?
Not in Nigerians' interest. And that's why we are saying we don't want this likely energy crisis to escalate and take us to the crossroad.
And that's why we also reached out to Francis Johnson, the president of Pengaston, to tell us, is this selfish interest on the part of the union for them to have down tools? But because I see comments on Twitter, some are thinking that, well, the union is resisting this because it would expose certain things going on there that may not be right for that sector. But he's not here as of yet to speak on this matter. We hope he will eventually.
I think when you talk about Nigerians, with due respect, whether living or alive, Nigerians are great people. I was just talking about one country. I was talking about Saudi Arabia. You will be shocked to see the number of Nigerians working in Saudi Aramco. You will be shocked to see the number of Nigerians working in Petronas of Malaysia and the rest. So Nigerians are great, right, in their respective capacities. And Nigerians are ready to contribute in the aggregate growth of this country, right? Like we were talking about the PIBs. At a point, you ask yourself, does it mean we don't have enough oil and gas lawyers?
Let me jump in.
Don't you have enough oil and gas
about
accountants?
The same PIB. We did ask Prof. Tam David
Yes.
just now. Look, is that PIB going to sort all of this, perhaps camps, all those groups agitating, digging their heels in? But it says that's not even a magic wand.
Yeah, it can never. No, there is no magic wand in the world, but you can just do your best at every point in time. You don't have a single cure to everything, but at least it's a direction. If you have the PIB pass into law and it becomes an act, at least people will see a binding document.
Why have we not seen any labor strike, trying to force the hand of the National Assembly to consider the PIB?
No.
Why?
No, people, you see, you're talking about technical and intelligent submissions. And the question you two now will need to ask is, you can ask the National Assembly, does it mean Nigerians don't have enough oil and gas lawyers?
I think we'll also go back.
It would seem that we've not seen the will. I mean, let us face it. How long has the PIB been within the ambit of the National Assembly?
The only person that
it's gone through how many assemblies? The 4th Assembly, 5th Assembly, 6th Assembly, 7th Assembly. Now we're talking about the 8th Assembly.
You remember?
This is the time, since President Obasanjo was in power was when we were talking about the PIB. Now we have President Muhammadu Buhari in power. And we're still talking about the PIB?
Years ago, when I was in a program like this, a lot of people were attributing that to the IOCs, international oil companies, and I said no. And I said even the international companies then were living under the guise of divesting, but they were actually running away because of business climate hostilities. And it is now clear that the problem is with Nigerians.
No, that is why, again, you should look towards the union. It's a pity that the unions are not here. No, because if we say we want to move forward, for instance, you want to move forward, and doesn't it even bother you that you have privatized a company, for instance, maybe an electric company, and they still go to shut down things there? How do you come into an environment such as that?
You see, when a privatized body is different from a public body. When you talk about...
Do we understand that here?
It's understood.
It doesn't seem so, Engineer Bala, because going by what has happened and what is happening, an electric company is already on strike because some unions have gone there to shut down activities happening there. And people say, wait a minute, I have already paid for services and you have no business whatsoever because this is already a private enterprise. Do you think we're sending the right signal for anyone or would-be investor or investors, especially in the country, to come invest in any of our in any sector of our economy?
In Nigeria today, there are so many things that are putting us on the negative side, on the international pedestal, and that was why I said we don't want to get to the point where we'll be described as a great country of great people, but a bad example. No matter how you are, who you are, if you're described as a bad example, then you cannot be a good model.
Are you referring to the unions in this regard?
No, I mean, it's a collectivity. It's a collectivity.
But you agree that the few can't hold the majority to ransom?
No, but unfortunately, it's within the unions that you have the workers, you have those who will drive the mission to achieve your vision.
Mr. Bala, you know, I'm sorry that I have to interrupt you again, but I'm just looking at, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yes.
If this announcement was made Tuesday evening and unions met all night and, you know, reached the conclusion that with immediate effect they have to shut down, you have to ask whether there were other underlying problems. Because usually unions will give notice. If you don't engage with us, you know, 3 days ultimatum, 1 week ultimatum, or perhaps 1 day warning strike. But to shut down a system when you know what exactly is already on the ground, should we ask if there are other motives behind this? Have there been other matters on the ground before now?
To be honest, you're supposed to ask, but that was why we said at the end of the day, the minister is the boss to everybody. It's the boss to everybody, really, right? And the minister said probably there was not enough engagement. But to the best, as far as I'm concerned, the actions of the minister are also well intended. As far as I'm concerned, that was why I described them as two separate camps.
So if you say that they're well intended, I mean, the unions even acknowledge that much. They think that yes, a restructuring will be needed, but then the consequence of that, or the action they decided to take, doesn't seem to match with that particular agreement.
Yes, but the action they took was just to initiate and invoke or call for an integrative discussion or dialogue or bargain or negotiation.
Is that the only way?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there are other options, but even the former minister, the respected professor, said they should come to the round table, and that was why I said, in situations like this, who can you call upon as a neutral party? Probably the secretary to the government of the federation.
All right, Zaka Bala is the petroleum engineer. Thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning.